Welcome to Making Money with Laura Sanders, a name you can trust. With over 20 years of real estate experience and selling over 150 homes a year, Laura Sanders is the #1 Remax agent in the state of Florida for 2021. Join us each week as we discuss how to make money through buying and flipping homes to renting versus selling and everything in between. To join the conversation, call in live 888-994-4995, Studio A.
Laura Sanders, and I'm your host, Laura Sanders. So today we have a guest, and we have Phil Wise with Wise Home Inspections. And today we're going to talk about some things that have to do with home inspections, and then we're also going to talk about a new grant that's out that's going to help you save some money on getting your home hurricane ready. So, welcome, Phil.
Thanks, Laura. Great to be on your show.
Yep.
I'm privileged to be on here with one of the top Remax agents in the country.
Well, thank you. So what we do is we try to always do a show that has something to do with how we can help people to make some money. So recently, the government, right, and you can be a little more specific if it's state funded, if it's county funded, if it's, how that all works, or if it's, throughout all the states, right? They're now offering up to, I think it's $10,000 for hurricane protection.
Correct.
So, for instance, like a 2-car garage door could cost anywhere from $200 to $2,500. Sometimes I found it for $1,800, but good deal. But they would actually reimburse you for making your house hurricane proof. However, there is some stipulations, some parameters that we would need to realize that are going to come into effect. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this is a state program that was introduced right at the end of last year after Hurricane Ian. So the state of Florida will provide us, Laura said, up to $10,000 for to reimburse you for protecting your home from a hurricane. So the stipulations are, if the insured value of the home is $500,000 or less, and if there are parts or sections of your home that are not hurricane protected, so if you don't have any protection on your windows or doors, or some of your windows and doors. A lot of people in Broward and in Miami might have impact windows, but they never changed out the doors, and so they don't get all the insurance discounts, and they can get grant money for that. So the state, if you contact Google My Safe Florida Home, and you can apply online, they'll do a free wind mitigation for you, and they'll identify from that what items in the home need to be strengthened. I mean, it could also be if you've got an older home and it doesn't have proper hurricane straps, then they can have those retrofitted. For you as well.
Which can get kind of pricey though, but it is worth it to do it if you
It is. I mean, I spoke to, did an inspection recently, and it was going to save him $2,000 a year because it was an expensive home to, if he had the hurricane straps retrofitted. So once they come out and they do the inspection, they'll send a recommendation of what they'll provide money for. You get your own contractor. You have to use one of the state-approved contractors. Once you've done the work, then you submit it to the state or through the program. And for every $2 that you spend, they'll reimburse $1 for every $1 you spend, they'll reimburse you up to $2, up to $10,000. So if you've got $5,000, if you spend $5,000 on fixing things, then they'll give you $10,000.
So wait, if you only spend $5, they're going to give you $10?
Yep.
So if the garage door cost me $25, they're going to give me $5 for spending $25?
If you spend, or if the garage door costs $25, you're going to pay 1/3. The state will pay 2/3.
Okay, so it is going to cost you something out of your pocket.
It's going to
not
cost
like
you something.
They're giving you. So basically, you get 10, but you're going to end up spending like.
Yeah, I mean, whatever it is. I mean, if you only have the garage door, you're not going to get 10. You're just going to get the cost of the garage door.
So let's go back and let's talk about how they determine the value of the house. So a lot of homeowners have had their homeowners insurance for a long time, so they're undervalued. So how are they determining that value when some people are undervalued?
As I understand it, they're just asking for a copy of your insurance.
So which would be lower sometimes.
Yes, that's right.
So where you think the value of your home might be $850,000, right? Truly on the market, your insured value, because now we have to back out the land. So if you look, like some counties, let's just say it's $8 a square foot for the land. If you have a 10,000 square foot lot, right, you're talking, you're going to multiply that out, right?
Right.
So then you back that out, and that could potentially be...
Yeah, it could be quite a bit less.
Right. Yeah. So really more people might be qualified than what we originally thought when we first discussed this.
Right. Yeah.
So, and what I found that a lot of people are misinformed about is that originally when wind mitigations came out, 4 points have been around for a long, long time, but they weren't being utilized so often because they weren't being used originally when I first got into the business until the house was 50 years old. And then that changed, and then it became 40, then it became 30. Now I've heard 20.
Now it's 20, except with, I think it's all state, it's 10 years.
Wow.
And even I've heard of some cases where they've wanted them on, new construction. I think we even had one. So you just never know.
Okay, so let's talk about, the 4 point. Tell people what the 4 point is.
Right, so the 4 point is really a cut down inspection report just for the insurance company. The insurance company is obviously wanting to reduce their risk as much as possible. So they want to make sure that the roof, the electrical, the plumbing and air conditioning are in working order and unlikely to lead to an insurance claim in the near future. So
let's say, for instance, there's a couple of electrical panels, where a lot of people are not aware of this. So when I go out on an appointment, especially people who've lived in their homes for 30 years, they're like, what are you talking about? My panel's been here for 30 years. My house is fine, right? So what are those panels that could be recalled in a 4 point inspection?
Right, so the panels may be fine, but there are 4 brands that the insurance companies have flagged, and regardless, pretty much every insurance company, with possibly the exception of Citizens, is going to want those electrical panels replaced before they will bind insurance on the home. So the most common one, the most well-known, is Federal Pacific, or FPE, but there's also Zinsco, Sylvania, and more recently they added Challenger to the list.
And what about Stablock?
Well, Stablock is a Federal Pacific.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So so that makes sense. So we have subnames of some of these panels. So that's really important. So then what happened was, though, a lot of people that have their wind mitigations they're only good for 5 years.
Correct.
But they continue to be good if an insurance company doesn't recall you and ask you to come back out. Some people get slipped under the radar, and you're just lucky. Honestly, you're just lucky, right? But if they say to you, hey, we need you to get a new 4 point and wind mitigation, which is happening all the time, right? That's when those people that had it from 10 years ago, where they were like, well, I got all my credits. And you're saying, well, listen, it's different now. So tell us about how that's different.
Yeah, well, there were things that weren't considered an issue 10 years ago that now are. Like Challenger did not used to be on the list, and now it's on the list.
Well, that's the 4 point, but the wind mitigations now are required, right? And so now people that don't have all their coverings, where they would have, the garage door wouldn't be hurricane rated, but all the windows would, or they would have panels and they would get partial credit. Well, now it's an all or nothing rule.
It depends what county you live in too. If you're in Miami or Broward, it's considered the high velocity hurricane zone, and so it's all or nothing. If you're in the rest of Florida, they'll give you a credit just for impact windows, even if you haven't done the doors.
So funny though, my daughter's buying a house up in Claremont. And so every time because she's from here, she goes, well, does it have impact windows? And the realtor says, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it depends where you are. If you're near the coast, it'll probably matter in other parts of the state.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, there's other parts of the state. It doesn't really make much difference if they're not, because if it's not a high-risk hurricane area, then it doesn't make a big difference. But it's a really crucial thing in South Florida, especially when you're buying a home. You need to know how much your wind insurance is going to be. I've seen several properties where the wind insurance was $25,000 a year, and so
I just heard from somebody recently. It was a lender actually was telling me that he has a client that insurance came back on a $2.5 million house at $125,000 a year. Now, I will tell you, in my career, where then I started asking about the flood level, where the flood zones are, right? Came back like $28,000 for flood insurance. Now, there's a trick to that one. The problem with that house was, and this was down by Young Circle in Hollywood, and the problem is that the people owned it since 1940. It was in a high level flood zone, and they didn't have flood insurance. They never carried it because by that time the family owned the house outright. And so when they were selling it, it wasn't like you could transfer the flood insurance over. So if you are in a high flood zone, you can transfer the policy over.
No, okay, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
you could transfer the policy over. So these are a lot of questions that people should be asking when you're purchasing a home. I get New Yorkers sometimes they'll ask me, oh, like you're just on like a canal, right? And they go, oh, well, is this going to flood the house? Well, the canals that we have here, they lower them when they know that we're coming for a storm or we're having high rains. They'll lower that. So the likelihood that that's going to happen where it's something where it's not run by the water district, right?
Yeah, the only way to tell if it's at risk, and it's not something we get involved in, but you can go to Realtor.com. That'll usually tell you what flood zone you're in, or you can Google, the Florida flood zone map, and it's an interactive website where you can put in the address and it'll tell you what flood zone you're in.
Okay. So tell me, what was like the worst inspection you've ever had?
The worst inspection? Well, the worst inspection was one I did recently. I haven't seen a house in this bad a condition since the days of the recession when everything was in foreclosure. It was a house in Miami. The roof was probably at least 30 years old, shingles over shingles over shingles, all broken away. Water was pouring in. The walls were all rotted away from just the wood rot from the water coming in.
And they did an inspection. Why?
Well, they were almost giving the house away because it had to be pretty much rebuilt. That's one of the worst I've done.
Well, hold that thought. We're going to go to a commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about inspections and what people should be looking out for when buying a home.
At Title Brothers LLC, our mission is to give you the best closing experience anywhere in the country. Founded in 2020 by Adam Lohman and Josh Wiseman, here at Title Brothers, we're your one-stop shop for residential real estate, title insurance, title and escrow services, real estate closing, and due diligence services. While primarily located in South Florida, we also host dozens of closings throughout the state and even electronically as requested. To contact the Title Brothers, call us at 954-995-4988 or visit our website and get a quick quote today.
Whether you're buying, selling, refinancing, or building your dream home, you have a lot riding on your loan specialist. Max Fish, a top 1% mortgage loan officer in the nation, will give you a same-day qualifying quote. Max Fish is committed to providing his customers with mortgage services that exceed their expectations. Ensuring that you make the right choice for you and your family is his ultimate goal. Contact Max Fish today at 954-729-6933 or max.fisch@nwmcorp.net.
You have been watching Making Money with Laura. For more information, contact Laura Sanders at 954-650-0827 or visit her website at lauraess.com. And now back to the show.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Making Money with Laura Sanders, and I'm your host, Laura Sanders. Or am I your hostess? What am I? All right. So anyway, okay. So welcome back, Phil. So we're talking about home inspections, and we're talking about really, I think some people don't really know what a home inspection really entails. So let's talk about what a home inspection entails.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good question because, there's a bit of confusion about that. The state of Florida actually has a standards of practice that home inspectors are supposed to follow. So there are things that we can't inspect. Obviously, we don't have x-ray vision, so we can't see through walls. We can't predict the future.
But you do have materials that can go through walls.
We have moisture meters that we can detect moisture in the wall. That's true. There's a lot of technology that we can use, which is very helpful. It's important for people to realize that a home inspection is a limited visual inspection of a home. So, and it's also important for people to realize what's the purpose of a home inspection. For some people, a home inspection is a tool to try and negotiate. It's a negotiating tool to try and get the price down. But to me, really, the main purpose of a home inspection is
make sure you're not getting screwed.
to find out the general condition of the home and find out if there's any major issues.
Yeah, it's scary. It's a huge purchase.
Yeah.
It's a huge purse. It's scary to, and I recognize that. Like, a lot of realtors, their commission's number one on their brain. Your number one thing on your brain should be your customer, right? And for you, it's like some inspectors, like they want to just wreck the insurance, so they get you come back and buy another inspection from you. Your number one concern is to make sure that you've done a thorough job, but they also know what's important to be scared about and what's really not that big of a deal, and it's normal.
Exactly, especially for first home buyers. It's a scary thing, and they see. In a typical house, it's in decent condition, and there might be 20 recommendations, but most of them are going to be maintenance things or recommended upgrades to bring the house up to current standards.
I have recommendations from when I bought my house back in 2002. And I still haven't done any of the recommendations. And I think what was like the hose out in the, things that like could be major things later on.
Right.
But the recommendations, right? I mean, one thing that most people don't ever do, and we could ask every person in this room right now, right? Do you seal your windows on a yearly basis? I doubt you do, but that's a recommendation, and it's actually required by insurance to really do, right? To provide to them that you've actually maintained the windows if something was to happen. Like they would want to know, like, okay, how did you maintain this? I mean, insurance can get really rough and really try not to pay for claims.
Right.
If they want it. Well, they do now, but
and this is not California, so just because you don't have GFI everywhere, you're not required, if it's original, you're not required to bring it up to current code. And we're not doing a code inspection either. That's the other thing people have to realize. Home inspection is not a code inspection. That's a whole minefield and different beast altogether. But
actually, if you do change, so most people are not aware of this, but you are supposed to be pulling a permit to put in a kitchen.
You're supposed to be pulling a permit to do just about anything these days, apart from painting and maybe flooring.
Don't leave toilets out in front of your house when
if
you've
you're
changed
doing
them out.
electrical or plumbing or anything structural. Or,
so if you were to actually go ahead and put a new kitchen in, you would need to go and bring your electrical up to code.
Right.
You would need to have hardwired smoke detectors.
Right.
Like there's a lot involved that people don't really understand. Something else to talk about is new home construction. Should I get an inspection if I'm buying a new home?
Yeah, that's a good question. Some people think, well, it's a new home, that's why bother getting inspected? The city's inspecting it, and the builder hopefully is inspecting it. But a classic example of that yesterday, brand new home in Parkland, and nobody checked on the roofers, and there were probably 20, not cracked tiles, but smashed, broken tiles on the roof. And nobody bothered to check. The roofer couldn't care and was left like that. The garage door didn't work. I mean, I've seen all sorts of things on new construction. Electrical wires in the attic that had just been left live, hot wires, not terminated or anything. So there's lots of things that can come up on a new construction inspection.
In what part of the new construction would you actually do the home inspection?
Usually right at the end, preferably before the walkthrough. Sometimes they're done at the walkthrough, but we can help to add to the builder usually has a punch list of things to finish off at the end. We can help add to that punch list, before they get that to that stage, so that the last thing you want is right at the end, you're trying to close, and now you've got all these things that still have to be done, and you're trying to chase the builder. I mean, these people had their closing delayed 6 times.
Okay. So if people were looking for a home inspection, right, how would they get a hold of you?
They can look online, wisehomeinspectionsfl.com. They can schedule online. They can call from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. They can email us. It's very easy for it to get onto us.
And I know the ladies just love him. They love his voice, and they just pick him over his accent. So if you're looking to have that sexy Australian accent, it's Australia, right?
Australian, that's right.
If you want it from down under, just give Phil a call.
That's right.
Anyway, did I say that? Anyway, so we have a few minutes left. Real quickly, anything else that you want to share with us that you think is super important that people, when they're buying a house, need to know?
Yeah, so the really big things, Laura's already mentioned, electrical panels. The roof is the other really big issue, because just because the roof is good today and doesn't mean the insurance company is going to give you insurance, because insurance companies, they want to see that the roof has, generally speaking, they want to see at least 5 years life remaining on the roof. And that can be a deal killer. You might be looking at anything from $10,000 to $40,000 for a new roof. And if you suddenly find, that the insurance is not going to give you a new roof. So the first thing you want to do is when you get your insurance inspections, you want to make sure you've got life. You want to make sure you give them to your insurance agent and find out, A, how much your insurance is going to cost. B, are there any conditions that the insurance company is going to want done? And sometimes I've seen insurance agents not tell the buyer until a week before closing that all these things need to be done or they're not going to get insurance.
Well, here's the good thing. The contract actually protects you from not getting insurance, believe it or not.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. So even if you've gotten through your loan commitment, I'm not an attorney, but I've been doing this long enough to know there are certain things. That's why even as a listing agent, I'm always asking, did you get insurance? Did you get insurance? So a lot of times I get a 4-point win mitt sometimes, and we'll have my client take their win mitt, send it off, see what it does, right? And then we see if they're going to be able to get insurance themselves, right? And then we know that the buyer is going to be able to get it. So you want to try to be a couple of steps ahead. So are you one of the providers for that home to do the inspections for the county?
Yeah,
to get the...
Yeah, we are one of them, but we don't have any control over it. It goes through a third party,
okay.
And they
okay,
deal
great.
them out.
So you're probably pretty busy doing that. So.
Well, we haven't done much for the last month because now the market's got so busy, so we haven't been doing those. Yeah.
Right. Well, if you're looking for a realtor, give me a call, Laura Sanders with Remax Direct at 954-650-0827. And when you get that house under contract, you're definitely going to need to give Phil Wise a call at
954-608-3366.
Thank you for joining me and Phil, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you for tuning in for Making Money with Laura Sanders, a name you can trust. To join the conversation, call us at the studio, 888-994-4995 Studio A, or contact Laura directly at 954-650-0827. Laura Sanders, a name you can trust. We look forward to seeing you